smell the skunk. So, when the French explorers came through here, they asked them, what do you call this land? The French, they were told. And then the French wrote back home, they said, well, we went to this lovely trading region, and they call it Chicago. And so the name of our city has been this mispronunciation of the Native American term that loosely translates to stinky onion. So, you know, New York City may have the Big Apple, but here in Chicago, we got the stinky onion. What do you say, you know? Okay. Let's take you guys over here to the left. On our left, there's this kind of concave building with the griffins at the bottom and the Belvedere at the top. That is the London Guarantee and Accident Building. When it was built in 1923, now it is the London House Hotel. And it has attached to it one of the best rooftop bars in downtown Chicago. But I want you to imagine in 1803 at river level, that is where the first federal fort was here in Chicago. It was called Fort Dearborn, and it was just kitty corner from the first non-native settler of Chicago. His first settlement is Jean-Baptiste Pont-du-Sable behind the Apple store. We just passed it, but I'll point it out when we're coming back. But yeah, so they had the first settlement and then Fort Dearborn just right across from it. And then this building that kind of looks like a finger pointing up, that is the Mather Tower. That was built in 1928. It's in the neo-Gothic style, and it was the tallest building in Chicago when it was completed. Only for 23 days. It's worth mentioning. So this building over here on our left that has the dome at the top and the four-cornered temples, that is the Jewelers Building. It's in the Beaux-Arts architecture style. That is French for fine arts. Now, it is the French's interpretation of classical Roman and Greek architecture. Now we have it here in America. But it was called the Jewelers Building during construction in 1927 because they wanted to draw in jewelers to open up offices in that building. And their main selling point was this. They said, hey, jewelers, are you scared of Al Capone and his cronies trying to rob you of your jewels and your cash when you go from your car to your office? Open an office in the Jewelers Building because it has the first car elevator of Chicago. Imagine that. In 1927, the most popular car was a Ford Model T. So you just drive your tiny little Ford Model T into the bottom of the building, into the car elevator, take it up to your office, and you never have to expose your jewels and your cash to the mean streets of Al Capone, Chicago. That's a cool idea. Did not stand the test of time, though, because cars started getting a lot bigger and heavier than a Ford Model T in the 30s and 40s. Now let's jump into a different architectural style known as postmodernism. What you need to know is that what happened before postmodernism was modernism. It's just black steel and glass. After World War II, they were known for saying less is more, simple design is best. Then came the 70s and 80s when postmodern said less is a bore, material girl, we're going to make everything flashy and fun. So this building over here on our left with the silver siggets going all the way in the windows, that is the Leo Burnett building from 1989. And this is known as postmodern architecture. It's flashy, it's different. And we know the Leo Burnett building because of Leo Burnett Advertising Agency. We know the Leo Burnett Advertising Agency because we know Tony the Tiger, Snap, Crackle, and Pop, the Pillsbury Doughboy, the Jolly Green Giant, and All States Mayhem. They were all characters born from the Leo Burnett Advertising Agency. All right, now staying with the postmodern era, over here on our left, this mirrored glass and white stone building is 77 West Wacker from 1992. It's flashy, it's different, it's inspired by the Parthenon, because at the top of the building has a pointed roof, and the entire building is made to kind of look like a Greek column and have the Parthenon at the top, so we like to call that building the Parthenon on a stick here in Chicago. Now, as you see, we have 1.3 miles of continuous river walk here along the Chicago River. It was made continuous finally in 2017 when we added all these walkways underneath all the bridges. This was originally part of the 1909 Burnham Plan of Chicago. You're going to hear me say that name quite a bit on this tour. Daniel Burnham wrote the 1909 Plan of Chicago, and he believed that we should have a river walk with it. But moving on, behind these steps on our left, this building that looks like a throne, that is from 1930. It's the LaSalle Wacker building, and the reason that it looks like a throne is from a 1923 city ordinance that said if you're constructing your building over 500 feet, you have to push back the mass of your building so that we can still see the sky and feel the sunlight here in Chicago. This is all because there was a real fear that when our city planners went to New York City in the early 1900s, they realized that so many buildings were going up so tall and so close together. They were like, if we do this in Chicago, we might not be able to see the sky. So that is why any building you see that kind of has a setback like that, it's following that 1923 city ordinance. Now this building directly on our right, it's 300 North LaSalle from 2009. It is impressive in the way that that building functions. It's a highly energy efficient building, and it has an award called the LEEDS Platinum Award. That stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, and Platinum is the best you can get on it. So it has a lot of energy efficient features such as smart windows, got a green roof, and then it sucks up river water uses it to cool the machine systems in the building, and then it filters it and returns it back to the Chicago River cleaner than it got it. So as of right now, the 300 North LaSalle, that is like a Brita filter for the Chicago River. Right here on our right, this is hard to miss, for one. It's the Merchandise Mart. It's from 1930, and it eventually had its own zip code. This used to be the largest building in the world by square footage, with 4.5 million square feet or 11 miles of hallways, until the Pentagon was completed. So this was meant to be the wholesale retail offices for Marshall Fields, Sears and Roebuck, Air Montgomery Ward, J.C. Penney, those retail moguls that we know. They'd have their entire collection within there. Unfortunately, it had horrible timing. It opened just 6 months after the start of the Great Depression, so it did not stay open for long. And then an American family in 1945 bought it. It was Joseph P. Kennedy. Yes, the Kennedys bought it in 1945 for $12.5 million. And then in 1998, they sold it and they made $650 million. Now, I'm not the best at math, but I think that is what you call a good return on investment. Okay, this area of the river we have entered, this is known as the confluence of the Chicago River. This is where the main branch meets the north branch on our right and the south branch on our left. And from above, it creates this letter Y. And that's one of the municipal symbols of Chicago. It's this circle with the letter Y in it. You can see it on the Chicago Theater marquee, some of our lampposts, even some manhole covers. Because in the 1830s, this was the social center of Chicago, meaning that 500 fur trading people, they'd come to this area, called it Wolf Point, because there were 3 taverns in this area, one on each corner. We also had one church, but you could tell where our priorities laid. All right, as we're turning, it's hard to miss this green curved building over here on our right. The Nuveen building is from 1983, and this is a great example of contextual architecture. Now, it's called contextual because it is referencing the area that the building has been constructed. So it was given a weird piece of land, so this architecture went with it. He said, you know, I'll make the building curved, and it'll go with the curve of the river, and then I'll give it 2 shades of green wavy glass, and that'll match the green waviness of the river. So it's like it's having a conversation with the building around, with the area around the building. This building's also a movie star because it was featured in 1986's Ferris Bueller's Day Off. That is the office building that Ferris's father worked in the movie. All right, I briefly mentioned Art Deco. Now, what is Art Deco? Well, it existed in between World War I and World War II. Think Roaring 20s, Jazz Age, Great Gatsby, really energetic era. Well, how do you express energy with something static like a building, but with verticality? So, this Art Deco monstrosity has pushed-in windows and dark ornamentation, each level going up to draw your eyes straight up. It's very energetic, and then it's suave and smooth in the Art Deco style by adding these chevrons at the base and at the top that ties it all together. And so this is a very prominent style in between World War I and World War II, and it was really classy back in the day, and I still think it's really cool. So now you know what it looks like, and you can take that information back home with whatever other buildings that might be Art Deco at your house. Not your house, but you're sitting. All right, so from this bridge to the next, this is one of the best downtown views of Chicago, so enjoy the view, and then I'll talk about the next brick building that has a clock tower on it. Everyone get their photos? Yeah? Good? All right. This next building over here on our left is from 1914. This is the Reed Murdoch Center. And when it opened, it was a food storage and processing facility. Notice it's right next to the Chicago River. We were a highly industrial river all through the 1900s till about the 1990s and all that. Notice this building is also asymmetrical. There are 5 window bays on the left and 6 on the right because this building is older than before they made the LaSalle Street Bridge. I also know for a fact that this building is haunted. I'm not going to get too much into that, though. Any building that you see that has a clock tower at the top, it was built during a time where people didn't have enough money to purchase their own watches or kind of pocket watches. A wristwatch didn't become popular until after World War II, so any building you see has a clock tower at the top of it. It's either before the time of wristwatches and all that, which is kind of cool, kind of knowing that stamp. Now look 2 bridges ahead. On the right, above the sign Morton the Steakhouse, there's this green building with a gold top. That is the Carbide and Carbon building. It's from 1929, designed by the Burnham brothers. These are the 2 sons of our 1909 city planner, Daniel Burnham, designing a building for a very successful dry cell battery company. They said, hey, what better way to display your success than to design your building to look like a bottle of champagne? That was during Prohibition. It was not legal to drink champagne, but completely legal to design a building to look like a bottle of champagne. Real 24-karat gold at the top as well. Only 1/5000th of an inch thick, so if you scraped it off, you'd only have enough to fill the palm of your hand, which is not a good retirement plan. I have to keep telling myself that. Over here on our left are 2 of the most iconic towers here in Chicago. These are the Marina City Towers from 1964. Nobody was living downtown quite like these folk because, for one, nobody's living downtown. They were all moving to the suburbs. So this was designed to be a city within a city, full of amenities that folks wouldn't have to go very far at all to get any of their needs met. So they got the marina for their boats, fine dining restaurants, a movie theater, roller rink, grocery store, doctor's office, barbershop, elementary school, bowling alley, all within those 2 towers. That was designed by Bertram Goldberg, and he was known for saying that there are no right angles in nature, so he didn't want to put any right angles in his architectural design. Now, Bertram Goldberg had a teacher here in Chicago, and his teacher was the father of the modern style movement, which is exactly this on our left. Nothing but right angles, just black steel and glass. Mies van der Rohe was known for saying that there's nothing more elegant than showing exactly what your building's made out of, just black steel and glass. He was known for saying less is more, God is in the details. So I love that these 3 towers are together because it's student and teacher's design completely juxtaposing each other. But pop culture speaking, I like describing them together like Princess Leia, Luke Skywalker, and Darth Vader, their father. Now, up ahead, there's this white building with a clock tower at the top. That is the Wrigley Building. It's from 1920, also in the Beaux-Arts style. There are 250,000 hand-pressed terracotta tiles on the outside of that building. Now, terracotta, that is fired earth, is what that means. So it's clay that's been fired. So essentially, that building, the outside of it, is fireproof. Wonder why they wanted to do that here in Chicago. We'll get to that. So the Wrigley family, funny enough, they did not always start off as a chewing gum family. They actually started off as a soap business family, and it wasn't until the late 1800s they started adding free sticks of gum to their soap, and their soap got so much more popular, but people weren't getting cleaner. They'd buy the soap just to chew the gum, and then they threw the soap away. So when they switched to the gum business, that turned out a lot better for the Wrigley family. Over here on our left, it's hard to miss this gorgeous Gothic cathedral office building. That is the Chicago Tribune. It was built in 1925, and it's the result of a worldwide architectural design competition hosted by the owner of the Tribune. His name was Robert McCormick, and he said, we got the best newspaper in the world. Let's have the most beautiful office building in the world. And so when people made the submissions and all that for the design, that is the design he chose because it looks an awful lot like the Butters Cathedral in Rouen, France, where Robert McCormick was stationed during World War I. So when he saw that design, he could not resist it. He had to select it. It was his favorite. And just, once again, let me go ahead and make a callback to Jean-Baptiste Pont du Sable. Just in front of the Chicago Tribune is Pioneer Court, where that is where the first fur trade settlement of Chicago was made. Now, my favorite part of the Tribune, at the bottom, there are over 100 iconic architectural fragments from all around the world that are embedded into the wall, like the Pyramids of Giza, the Great Wall of China, the Cathedral of Notre Dame, the Parthenon. You could walk around the entire base, and it's like a free museum. Free? Chicago? What? I know. I love the word free, and I love giving it to you. All right, this building over here on our left that has the colorful peacock and the spire at the top, that, you can guess, is the NBC Tower here in Chicago. It's from 1989, designed by Adrian Smith. He's a Chicago-born architect, and it looks an awful lot like, or inspired by, the first ever NBC Tower, which is in New York City, 30 Rockefeller. Now, New York City, that building is Art Deco. This still has a lot of Art Deco elements, you know, with the pushed-in windows and the verticalities, but since it's from the 80s, hence the shoulder pads halfway up, you can't really identify it as Art Deco. But Adrian Smith, he likes to call it the heritage style, since it is referencing the first ever NBC Tower in New York City. Jeez, nobody likes shoulder pads from the 1980s? No? Nobody got that one? That's okay. It's one of my favorites. Okay, the last but not least, after the Columbus Drive Bridge, if you look to your right, there's these 3 blue wavy towers. That is the St. Regis. It's the 3rd tallest building here in Chicago, made in 2020. But ladies, that is the tallest building in the world, designed by a woman. Yeah, here we go. Woo! Great. So the St. Regis, it is a hotel and residential towers, and that jet out that you see towards the front of it that has all those shapes on the outside, that gives you an insight to the structural engineering of those 3 towers, because those shapes on the outside, they're called frustums, and a frustum is like a pyramid with the top cut off, or like a classical popcorn bucket. So if you look at design of those 3 towers, it's like she stacked those shapes going from bottom to top to bottom to top, all the way up. And I misled you when I was describing these 3 towers. I called them wavy and curvy, but there is no curved glass on the St. Regis. It is all an optical illusion that if you just look at the edges of the building, you can see that each floor is either just pushed out 5 inches or pulled in 5 inches to make the building look like it's waving or undulating on its way up. I know, ooh, ah. It's an absolutely gorgeous addition to the Chicago skyline, so naturally, it must have been designed by a woman. All right, that in there concludes the speed round of the tour. A lot of buildings to talk about, a lot of information, but now we're getting into the more beautiful views, some founding stories of Chicago and everything like that. And this first story I have for you is about the Chicago River, because the direction we're driving right now is how the original Chicago River used to flow. I say originally because we reverse engineered the flow of the Chicago River. That's a crazy thing to say, but even a crazier thing to do. Now, the short version of this story is that we polluted the Chicago River. That polluted Lake Michigan, which polluted us, so we sent the river somewhere else. The long version of that story goes back to 1833. We are an established municipal. We have 500 people living here, and we don't have the foresight to say maybe we should never pollute the Chicago River because that would pollute Lake Michigan. We don't think about that. And the story escalates to 1850. We have 30,000 people living here with no sewage system. That means 30,000 people's human waste is everywhere you wouldn't want to see it, smell it, and step in it. Gross. I know. People are getting sick. So the city reaches out to a civil engineer. This guy's name is Ellis Chesbrough, and we ask him to design a sewage system for our city. And the first thing he does when Ellis Chesbrough gets here, first thing he says is, ew. Second thing he says is, well, your city's 3 feet below sea level. We got to raise your city up. So they put the buildings that have already been constructed on stilts, raising them inches at a time up to about 10 feet to put a sewage system into the entire city. And it worked great. There was no more human waste going into the streets. It went into the pipes. And where did the pipes empty into? Chicago River. Where's Chicago River going? Lake Michigan. I hope you're connecting the dots. We just connected the toilet to the kitchen sink. It's not going to work out well in the long run, and it doesn't. Now all of this waste is lining our lakeshore, and we're like, hey, Ellis Chesbrough, how are we supposed to get fresh drinking water now? And he responds with a rhyme. He says, the solution to pollution is dilution. The next thing he designed for our city are structures about 2.5 miles offshore. They're called water intake cribs. So far offshore in Lake Michigan, it would suck up the fresh drinking water and send it to the residents of Chicago via a pipe underground under the lake. And so it was working out great.